Well, happy Tuesday evening, everyone. Welcome, Wendy, to Robertson.
Well, thank you, Mr. Roberts.
How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are
Out,
you?
I am outstanding. Even better now. So,
Well, likewise.
uh, well, and nice to have you here as usual. And everybody who's starting to join us, welcome to all of you. Glad that you could make it in today. And Wendy, once again, I see, not that we have limitless wardrobes, either of us, but once again, we have synchronized, I think, intuitionally. A
I
little
know.
red, a little black. You've got on a lot of red and a little black, and
Love that.
and that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And so, how is everybody else out there? We're really happy that you're joining us today. And the show starts officially. I know there might have been some confusion by a couple of the comments. At 4:03 p.m. is when we go live over on the radio station. And they do stagger us out a bit, however. So this show you might not hear until tomorrow over on the radio station, but that's okay. But you can catch us live just about everywhere else. So welcome to the program. And Wendy and I said rather, I want to say tongue in cheek, but maybe that's not the appropriate thing to say. But the topic today
Yes.
is one that I think can be taken many different ways,
Mm.
because I could look at Wendy and go, whew, object do lust. Do I want to lust after it? Did not even want to. Does the mind lust after things? Yes, it does. But is there other kinds of lust? Yeah, there's all kinds of lust. There's lust for power. I must have total power. There must be, there is lust for all different other kinds of things. Uh, let's see. No, my comment has to do with the topic when related to a certain McMahon. You talking Vince McMahon? And his stuff. I don't even know all the story behind that, so I can't comment to it. You can talk about it in the chat room though if you'd like, as it relates to the topic here. So relevant timing, not necessarily. So the relevant timing is that I think it's something, and Wendy, you can jump in on this if you disagree with me, or even if you do agree, is that lust is an ever-present thing with all of us in one respect or another. We're
Yeah.
either engrossed in it, or we're afraid of it, or we're afraid of experiencing it, or we put it into a biblical context or a religious context or a secular context. We can look at it as a positive. I lust for certain things. Well, wasn't it President Jimmy Carter? And this is really old. Goes way back to the 70s. But he said smilingly, yes. He said, "I lust after my wife," and he was a very well-known Christian president, and he made no bones about that. So, but obviously did for his wife, because he lusted after her. So all different kinds of ways of looking at lust. And so we wanted to kind of address that. And since Wendy and I do an awful lot of talking, it seems, Wendy, we didn't start this way, although, well, maybe we did. And that's why it just kept up. But our topics always seem to focus around personal relationships, sexual issues, things like that. As I tried to say, looking at her without a coy smile on my face. So, so there it is. Wendy, rescue me from just blabbing and blethering about this.
You're
And
doing fine. You just carry on.
give me some hard facts here about lust. I couldn't resist.
Well, we laughed before we
Cheers.
started the show about this topic, and I'm sure we're still laughing now. The thing is, the most famous topic of love always goes back to the original story of Adam and Eve, where temptation, lust is, lust is
Well,
it can be brought up in many different ways. For instance, longing, passion, desire, craving, urge, appetite, thirst, hunger. All those words can be used in the same way as lust. I yearn for her. I long for him, and I think, as you say, lust is good and bad in both ways. It's got very positive and also very negative. And the first story being Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, where Eve, baby, she got that apple and she was like,
she did.
"Do you want a bite of my apple?"
And I'm sorry, I hate to be a purist on you here. Never says it was an apple. It said it was fruit.
Yeah.
But you know me, I'm a literalist, and I dig into that. I did a lot of writing about that passage, that whole scenario in the Garden of Eden, where it says the serpent said, and it said the serpent seduced her.
Yes.
That the serpent tempted her, it says, and the serpent offered her, and she took, and she partook, and she gave to Adam. All of those things are neutral verbs, but they're all in the context of that passage written in sexual connotation. Mm-hmm. So the whole idea of that whole Garden of Eden story was one of the serpent character. We're told he was a snake. Why do we get then, snake to represent the male genitalia, my one-eyed serpent, as guys will say. That obviously caught on from that. And I don't think that was the sole sourcing of that. It's shape, it's design, it's all of those things. The lust behind it is what put the connotation to it. But you look at that whole passage, and where it's got those verbs in the passage, it says that the serpent tempted her. And by the way, serpent doesn't mean he was a literal snake. Serpent was the name given for the word Nakash, which is the word used in the Garden of Eden. And Nakash approached Eve. And Nakash, its literal meaning, is the bright shining one, the one who the trickster, the one who turned the world upside down. But it says the bright shining one that he tempted, or in the Hebrew, he seduced Eve into. And now you can seduce something, as well as I do, Wendy. It doesn't always have to have a sexual connotation. You can seduce somebody into believing in a religion. You can seduce them into eating the food you've prepared. There's ways we can do that, but seduction is always taken on this kind of brazen sexual connotation. But in the Garden of Eden story, he seduced Eve. It said that she looked on the fruit that was being offered and saw that it was something that would make her, or that looked beautiful and delicious and would make her wise. How many of us look on a banana or an apple and go, "Woof, baby, that's going to make me wise"? No, we go.
It depends on the shape, honestly, because the banana is very phallic, and he was like, "Here's my lovely apple." I think the thing is, all of us know what it's like to lust after something or someone.
Yes.
Using Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, there's two people that lust after each other so many times.
Yes.
And got back together again and again.
And again and again and again.
And their longing and their yearning and their love was very, very strong. And there is a difference between lust and love. Very, very different. But when you first meet someone, when you're single and you're looking for someone to date, they've got to have that je ne sais quoi, which what I mean by that is there's that something you just can't.
I don't know. Would it be that certain something I don't know?
Yes.
That
je ne sais quoi, which basically is something about this person that I cannot get enough from. And you're intrigued to learn more and more and more. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and she said, "You know what? I can't date a guy if I don't fancy him, if I don't lust after him.
Right. Sure.
I can't even talk to a guy if I don't fancy him or lust after him. There's got to be that, oh God, I can't take my hands off him. I want more. And I think that that is when you're drawn to someone. Now, sometimes lust doesn't always start for everyone in the same way. Sometimes it doesn't always start there the same way. Sometimes it takes time for others to build up that lust. You know, some people, they have it just like this.
Sure.
Other people don't. But lust can get you into trouble.
It can.
You can be with someone and be drawn to someone else. And if there's something not too fabulous in your relationship, or maybe if there is something good in your relationship, you can still be attracted to someone else and feel lustful. And I also believe that you should be lustful about life. Your life should make you lustful. I'm hungry for more. I want to do more. I'm passionate. Bring it on. You've got to have that hunger in you, because I think a person without passion, without lust and hunger is missing something.
Well, it's interesting. You sparked the memory of an old Bible verse. And I just had to look it up to make sure I had the wording right. There's contemporary words that we use for lust, like desire or other words similar to that. But the older English, I think this is in the in not the King James, but an older English version. It's James 1 verse 15. It says, it's talking about lust and desire. It says, then the lust, when it's conceived, it bears sin. And the sin, when it's full grown, brings death. And this desire becomes pregnant, and it gives birth. And it gives birth to death. That's what it is. So then, after desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. The older English was, where's the King James here? So I can read that one to you. King James, pardon me, King James, where are you? I don't see it here in this list for some reason, which is odd. It's giving every different version, like the Weymouth New Testament. When the passion conceives and becomes the parent of sin, and sin, when fully matured, gives birth to death. So it's talking about lust as being a thing that can be given. If you give too much life to it, you can give birth to death. That is lust because it's talking about desire. It's talking about all those things in a biblical passage. So biblically speaking, when it's talking about purity of the mind, purity of the heart, it uses lust as that thing that you focus on. And it didn't say, you notice, it doesn't always say sexuality there. It says lust, the desire, the passion. When you give those things life and you give way, then they become sin, then they become death. They give birth to death. And so it's an interesting word.
It can be the death of you, lust. Let's be honest. But lust is, if we look at the juicy side of it, as in the relationship side of it, it's having a strong sexual desire for another person. It's the driving force that attracts you to someone and goes, "How you doing?
How you doing? No. How you doing?"
It also keeps the passion alive.
It does.
A long-term relationship, because lust alters the chemicals in the brain. Is it dopamine?
Dopamine.
You know, it alters the chemicals in the brain, and your hormones like testosterone, pheromones, and androgens. I think that's the one. They all influence how lust may be experienced.
Yes.
If you have a hormonal issue, if your testosterone or your, for ladies, estrogen, progesterone, or whatever, if everything's not working as it should be, your sex drive, your lust is going to be well down the pecking order. And it can make you feel like, I don't want to have it. I don't feel any lust for anything. I don't fancy it.
I don't fancy. I love that word. I swear to you, Wendy, nobody here could ever accuse me of ever having said, Why, that Wendy, I certainly fancy her. I mean, guys, of course, we don't talk that way, but
You
or
know,
or
it's
my wife, I fancy. Oh, she looks good in that towel. I fancy her out of it. That doesn't
it's
that's
an
not.
English terminology, though. To be honest, fancy is very much an English terminology. So
Yes.
you say it quite a lot. You fancy him. You fancy her. Oh, I fancy a bit of that. And without lust, let's be honest, would human beings procreate? They wouldn't. They because it'd be like, listen, I know we're thinking about having kids, but I just got no movement down there. It's not happening.
Right. Right.
I do think that lust is incredibly important, and I know it's been seen in the Bible and many things as sin. Well, of course, it was brought up as sin because they didn't
Sure.
want us to have fun in anything that we did. They It
Right.
had to be used for procreation only. You couldn't have sex for fun.
That was something that was almost revolutionary when I was in the 70s and the 80s, going to school, high school mostly in the 70s, in the 80s, college and seminary. It was just starting to flip over to say sex is not just for procreation, it can be for recreation. And everybody was like, oh, shocking. But yes, it could be. And they all knew it. They just didn't want to say it. So,
I mean, it's fun and it's free.
sex is absolutely fun.
It should be free unless you're in a position where you have to pay.
Well,
but let's be honest. Like if I saw you and I was like, he's a lovely person. He's got a lovely personality. Yes, I think he's a rather fine fellow. Without that lust, without that, oh my God, I want to rip his clothes off and throw him against the wall and bang him senseless.
Thank you, Wendy. Wendy, please calm down. We've got an audience.
What
Please.
I'm trying to say is that is the drive. That is the hunger.
Right, sure it is.
You should experience that within minutes or at least a very short time of meeting someone. You should have that that pull to someone, that sexual
Yes, you should.
desire, because you're like, oh my God, I'm liking this. And then that feeling of endorphins and all the rest of it, when you can't stop thinking about someone, that isn't because you're falling in love. It's that whole lust, which then eventually turns to love.
Mm-hmm. And it can turn to love. It can go negative. It can go positive, like we said. Yeah. There's an interesting article that I had pulled up for today, and it was something you said kind of triggered this. It's there it is, the lost concept of lust. And it was talking about sexual desire and lust not being the same thing. Sexual desire and lust could be actually two very different things. Mm-hmm. And lust was always capitalized, we capitalized it on being one of the 7 deadly sins. Lust, avarice, greed, all of these things, and lust being among them, gluttony, lust being aligned with gluttony. In contemporary language, though, lust is simply equated with sexual desire. But I think that's a mistake. And it's a mistake that really matters when we think about it. And as we're talking about it in this context today, this distinction has nothing to do with religious prudery, but rather with the place of sexual desire in a fulfilled human life. Religion and sex, these are things that they don't really have the best track record when you put them together, do they?
I don't think they really wanted you to have any kind of fun, because all the bad things were a sin,
Well, why? Because Eve was seduced, and I never finished that. The verbs in there. He offered. It was a sexual offering. She partook, which was a sexual. She passed it on to Adam. And so, in a sense, what you were almost seeing in the Garden of Eden story, and I've said it before, I put it in my book in describing the passage itself, is that you're actually seeing what could be defined as a Edenic 3-way that took place. You had Nakash, who was one of the Elohim. I don't have to go into that for this show, but I established why he's one of the Elohim. He offered something that Eve had not had up to that point: sexual activity. This was the opening of the eyes. Why do you think it said immediately after she takes the fruit, takes a bite, gives it to Adam, it says, and their eyes were opened, and poof, they realized they were naked. Because there was a sexual awakening. And then there's also the whole, which we're not going to get into, but which qualifies the passage, the whole serpent seed theory was that Eve had twins, Cain and Abel. One was the son of Nakash, the other was the son of Adam, and which is a physical possibility, by the way, folks, if you didn't know that. And so it was all this dual seed thing that was going on. So there was sex. She liked it. She passed it on to Adam. Boom, boom, boom. Did the three of them do it all at once together? I don't know. But what you know is that there is sexual activity that led to offspring, twins from two different fathers.
The first recorded threesome.
The first recorded sex in the history of humanity was a threesome.
First recorded threesome was it poor old Adam. I mean, Eve had to be the third one. I mean,
oh yeah,
it couldn't be Adam.
Couldn't be Adam.
It had to be Eve, and she was like, "Look at this thing." And poor old Adam, he had no fig leaf on at that point, and he was just like, But
see, and I will say this slightly tongue in cheek, but also slightly honestly. You put a guy like me, just sitting here, and a gorgeous woman comes up, beautiful body, beautiful face, beautiful, maybe even naked, and wants to go, look at this little thing I want you to try. And the guy's usually like, is he like, no, I'm sorry, go put some clothes on and we can talk. No, the guy, I'm talking mentally and figuratively, the guy is like, yeah, I'll try some of that.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And so, because that's the way we're wired, the way we're built. So I think when we look at this whole thing, I was talking about the fact that we have aligned religion and sex, that they don't have the best track record when we put them together. Yet in a lot of recent religious surveys, individuals who are religious people reported high levels of satisfaction regarding sex. There was even the medieval, what'd you call him? He was a philosopher, theologian, I would call him, Thomas Aquinas. Saint, he's a saint. Saint Thomas Aquinas believed that sexual intercourse would have been more pleasurable in the Garden of Eden before the fall of humanity than it is now.
Yes.
Because it would have been perfect, he said.
Well, it would have been the first. No one knew what it was before then. And they were kind of like, oh, hang on a minute.
Wow, let's do that thing again.
This is feeling rather good.
This is kind of fun.
Oh, where does it go?
Oh, Daddy likes the way you look when you take off the palm fronds or the fig leaves, palm fronds.
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, the difference between falling in love and falling in lust is they're very different. And obviously, when you meet someone and there's a connection, an undeniable connection,
yes,
with someone, and people go, "Oh, I fell in love at first sight." But maybe there is a slight difference between that feeling of love and lust.
Yes,
because lust is based on sexual desire and attraction, where love is based on emotional desire.
Yes.
So for instance, you know, I fancy the pants of you, I want to get jiggy with you, is definitely the lust, where I want to get to know you. I feel there's a connection. I fancy you, but there's something more about you than that. That is going into the emotional desire.
Right.
But I mean, I remember some times in my life where there's been lust, you know, it's been very lustful.
Say it isn't so.
Lustful in a relationship. And I remember one time in my life, without going into too many details, I'd met the person, first time I'd ever met them. I've never had a one night stand, so I never went there. But I'm telling you, I was tempted to break my rules that day
Sure.
because I was like, oh my God, I could not wait. I could not keep my hands off them. And I just couldn't wait to get my hands on them. And you know, when you're just sitting next to someone, and this is going to sound so bad, but Scotty, go with me on this one. Work with me.
I'll do my best. I'm trying to remember. Okay. Go.
You know, we just vibrate. You just vibrate when you sit
Yes.
next to someone.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Vibrate.
We can make fun of that, but I know exactly what you mean. There is a
vibrating because you feel that heightened sense of attraction and desire, and you're like, I just want you. I just want to touch you. And you reach out and you touch that person, and you might just touch their hair or tag their beard
and there's fire.
It's fireworks, baby. God damn it. And you're like, so, and you just, and then they touch you and you're just like electric shocks.
We're all wired that way to react that way. You take all this, take the religious aspect out of this for a second. Let's push that aside because it's a different topic. But is there a way to distinguish between sexual desire and lust that's going to be helpful for us? Is that lust we're talking about, that electricity and all of that? The difference is that sexual desire, for lack of a better word, call it lust if you want to, in its proper place and its expression, is a vital and good part of our humanity. In lust, however, we sometimes can fail to respect our own dignity and the dignity of our partner. Because if we go just on that electricity that you're talking about, we can do things without really thinking them through, without considering ramifications. Well, if I was to use a play on word, we might only consider ramifications. But I had to say that. It was there. The door was open for the play on words. But you all get what I mean. These are things we have to make the little play on words and stuff like that to make it fun and exciting to talk about this without sounding either prudish or overly sexual. But here's what, and Wendy, I read this to you before we started tonight, but consider this following definition of lust. It goes like this: lust pretends sex and sexual pleasure are a party of one. Get that? It pretends sex and sexual pleasure are a party for one. Lust makes sexual pleasure all about me. It's a self-gratification project. And this feature of lust, more than any other, puts it in opposition to well-ordered sexual enjoyment. Let me say, I jumbled that sentence. This feature of lust, more than any other, puts it in opposition to well-ordered sexual enjoyment. In lust, sexual pleasure is totally, completely divorced from mutual self-giving. I want my pleasure, says the lustful one, and I want it now. So simply stated, lust is the excessive desire for one's own sexual pleasure. The point is not that desire for such pleasure is wrong, but rather that that at its best, sexual intercourse is an act of mutual self-giving and even sacrifice, rather than mere mutual masturbation.
I was just going to say, there's that word.
There it is. You were going to say, didn't that have a different word in there? No, there it is.
A different word for that earlier on. Yeah.
So non-lustful sexual desire includes a desire for one's own pleasure, but also a desire for the pleasure of the other person. If I'm just operating out of pure lust, I'm looking to gratify my lust. And that rarely is caring about how the other person feels, because I'm operating out of lust. Now, does that mean lust is absent when you were giving to the other person? No. You're lustful, but you're lustful with that bent on it that it's like mutual masturbation, that you each other care about each other with each other's bodies. And so it becomes a mutual giving thing.
Well, yes, because I was just going to say, to follow up on that point, the best indicator that feelings of love will come from an emotional place. That means that having sex does not need to be the reason you spend time with someone. You actually
Right.
want to spend time with someone because you like them. They make you feel good. You want to get to know them. There are things about them. But with lust, sometimes it can just be like, I didn't want to date her. I didn't want
Right.
to date him. I just wanted to sleep with him. I just,
That's right. That's right.
it was an itch I wanted to scratch. So if you're falling in love with someone, you're going to, spend time with someone in a non-physical way, including going out to dinner, having conversations, talking about your long-term goals, doing other things. But with lust, it's kind of like, okay, so let's get in. And I have had so many
I know.
men in my time say to me, what do I have to do to get you into bed? And it's like, well, that was the first thing that's not going to get me into bed, because a man will just
Ask me that question again.
yeah, a man and woman will just say it. If they want it, they go, I just fancy them. And lust is based, let's get this right. Lust is based on sexual attraction. It's similar to chemistry, physical or surface level connection. You have not much, if you're just interested in a shag and nothing else, disinterest in getting to know the person you're lusting after. Now with love, very, very different. It's more emotional. You have similar compatibility. You get on with each other really well. You go, oh my God, me too, me too. It's more deeper. There's a more intimate connection, and you're interested in establishing a connection
Right.
more than a sexual one. Now, if you meet someone that you really, really like, and you still want to build that emotional connection, you then add the lust on that as well, then I think you've got a very good recipe.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. That's a good recipe. So what we can conclude is something maybe we all know, but we don't necessarily talk about it and categorize it this way. But when you meet somebody, that does not mean, if you want to do it the right way, you go, wow, that's a great person. That usually is not the first response that we have. Now, at least men, because I know men and women, as we all know, we've talked about before, we're wired completely differently. A guy can look at a woman that is absolutely gorgeous to him, what he considers to be gorgeous, and not even think about, wow, she makes me want to have a house together and bills to pay together and children and put our kids through school and grow old together holding hands. No, most guys will look at a woman like that and they'll go, "Ooh, I'd like to have her naked on top of me," or the other way around. That's the way the male mind will think.
Yeah.
But is there anything wrong with that? If that's the way we are naturally wired, is it wrong to think that way? No. Is it wrong, quote unquote, to act on that? Most times, I think. You don't just want to hop into bed with somebody and shag unless you're both just committed to, I'm committed to not being committed out of this. I don't even want to know your name. Let's just go. And then you go your separate ways. But how many stories do we know and we have heard of people that do that kind of thing and then they pine for each other? They're like, I want to know what happened to him. Where is he? How do I get a hold of him? Or he goes, she was fantastic. I would love to get to know her. Did I even get her number? Do I even know where she lives?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. We know those stories exist because fulfilling the pure lustful part of it can be self-fulfilling, but that can also bring you into something where you have, and sorry to do this to y'all folks, and you too, Wendy, when we talk about this, but the religious aspect says, when you have that sex, like I'm speaking a foreign language or something. When you have sex, what does that do to you individually? It opens your mind to you're giving a piece of yourself to that other person, whether you want to or not.
That's right.
The big question we say when I was in ministry, we just ask, yeah, there's a biblical concept here, but I said, let's push that aside for a second. Ask yourself, how many people have you given a piece of yourself to that you will never get back? That's a negative way to look at it. How many people have you opened yourself up to and given yourself to that you're okay with, but there's never going to be any way to fulfill that? Then I think we either strive after that to find that person that's going to fulfill that, or we're afraid something. What about the people, Wendy? Talk to me about this. It's just struck my mind. I don't think we talked about this ahead of time, but what about the people that get involved in relationships because they want that fulfillment, but then push that fulfillment away later? I wanted that a while back. Now I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
Even long-term relationships can do that.
Well, they reckon that so many relationships, new relationships, end around the 3-month mark because they've had all the highs and all the endorphins and all the lustful feelings and everything, and then it's like, oh, kind of got to know you now. This is not working for me. Let's move on, because people want that high. They want to keep that high. And the thing is, you can have that high, but you just got to keep at it. You just, pardon the pun, you just got to keep working on it. And they reckon that lust often, after 2 years of a relationship, that's when it's at its highest. And after that time, the emotional, deeper connection has been established between you and your partner, and love obviously has developed along that way. And that's the time when both lust and love can both be present in a relationship. But the thing is, I'm trying to think of a situation where I dated someone, and I can honestly say that the gentleman I'm talking about, I absolutely lusted the hell out of him, and it went on for the whole of the relationship. And there was never a day or time where I was like, no, he's not working for me, because literally it worked for me. But then, it has to be mutual. What happens if there's a problem on the other side, and all due respects, they don't find you as sexually attractive anymore?
Right.
Their sex drive has changed. They have a problem maybe with their pheromones or estrogen, progesterone, testosterone levels. They don't
menopause, middle age, whatever men go through.
They don't want to. That it's not there. So you've got one person who's like, let's do this. I'm up for it. I'm absolutely up for it. And the other one's going, yeah.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, I've been there as well. And it was awful, because if you are not desired by your partner sexually, if your partner does not show their lust or desire for you, it will damage the relationship. Because I say this again, and I'm going to say it again, and it's one of my favorite sayings. You have to work at a relationship 24/7, 365 days. Some days harder, some days not so hard. But if you do not fancy your partner, if you do not want to get their clothes off, and if you don't want to get close to them intimately, and you do not show them that you want to get close to them, like you don't touch them, you're not affectionate, you don't come after verbally, God, I can't wait to get my hands on you, you look gorgeous, or you look handsome, whatever it is. If you don't come up with that, it will start to chip away at the relationship. And if you're not having sex, if you're not lustful for each other, and unless you're both happy about that, what will happen? Here we go.
This happens every show.
You will become friends that are in a situationship, not
a situationship. That's a good way to put it.
Because a situationship is where you're in a relationship, but it's a situation.
Yes.
I mean, I was married for 6.5. Well, I was with my first husband 6.5 years. We were married for 2. I was with him for 4.5, and there was never a day that I did not want my ex-husband. There was never a day I didn't want him, even when he was sick and ill, even when he drove me nuts, and I wanted to just drown him in a saucer. I literally wanted him because that's how it should be. Now,
Yeah.
he was the same with me. He wanted me. He was always like finding a way somehow, somewhere.
Hmm.
And it can be verbal. Lust can be given
Sure can.
verbally. Lust can be given physically. Men are very visual, so send them a photograph.
Yes.
Women are more mental. We want the whole mental image.
D-
You
yes.
know what I mean? We want to know that, what we're doing to you. We want you to explain to us what you're doing to us. Like, so when you saw me, Scotty, like, how did it make you feel? What did you want to do?
Are you asking me?
I'm just
Oh no.
I'm using
I thought
this
that was
as
a
an
question at first, and I'm like, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Here, I'll deal with Michael White's question first. As it wasn't a question, Michael said, lust is a product of pornography. I think he's saying pornography and leads to a cheapening of your worth. I totally disagree, Michael. I don't hold it against you. I'm not calling you out or anything, but I would disagree with that saying because lust is something that you can have for somebody you love, and they can have it right back with you, and that lust creates wonderful things between people who want each other.
Yes.
And it can be ongoing. I know people who've been married for 30 plus years that still lust for each other.
Yes.
And that's a really cool thing. And like I said, you may have missed it at the beginning, but I remember even it was made famous and it was fun. It was dealt with in a fun way mostly. But President Jimmy Carter had made a lot of waves when he said, I lust after my wife. Rosalind was her name? Rosalind Carter.
That's
who
how
just
it should
passed
be.
away, sad to say, so recently. But
It should be like that. You should lust after your partner.
yes,
and it's like there's a longing for them. And the thing is, pornography,
yeah,
is very, very different to lust between two people.
yes,
Like, I'm sure the people that work in the porn industry, they get paid quite a bit of money if they are willing to do it willingly and not from any
yes.
other way. And it's part of their job. It's part of their job.
It's a job. It's a job having sex. Yeah.
And it's like, so we're going to have you here. We're going to arrange you there. You're going to make this noise, and then we're going to go like this, and we're going to go like that. When you lust after someone, say you're in a long distance relationship, which I've done more than once, and I'm what the hell is wrong with
you're breathing heavy.
What the hell is wrong with me?
It happened to me once. Yeah, no, I get it. Okay.
It's very hard to keep that lust alive because you're not seeing them and you're not able to touch them. So you have to come up with very good ways to keep that spark going, which would be a bit of naughtiness, a bit of like, photographs, maybe verbally and stuff like that. When you have that, you've got to, you've got to make that work. You've got to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
And so lust is very important because if you don't lust for that person who's, I don't know, 3 hours, 4 hours away, 10 hours away, 4,000 miles away, the relationship's going to fail. So you have to have that. I can't wait to see them. I'm here for 3 weeks, but I'm going to be over there soon. And that's how you keep it alive. If your feelings are only sexual in nature, and if after you've had the person, they become less sexually attractive to you and you start seeing flaws about them, if you've got no desire to build any deeper connection than that, and it's very, very short-lived, that's more lust.
Yes.
It's only if you just want to be intimate with the person because they've inspired sexual stuff into you, that again is lust. Very, very different. And also, let's be honest, Scotty, when you and I've met people, we've got into relationships, our heart's rate will start going. Voo, 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 voo. I mean,
Yes.
mine does
Yeah.
that anyway because I have
That's human.
patience.
We do that.
But your heart rate, you feel that excitedness, you
Mm-hmm.
feel that pounding of the heart. Your palms can get like sweaty. You feel nervous. You fidget. You play with your hair, or etc., etc. And who can remember the famous movie Fatal Attraction, which was all
Oh yes.
based on lust after
Bunny boiling lust.
Glenn
Yes.
Close, after just she was in it for more, and he just wanted the one night. And he was like, "Can you be discreet?" And she said, "I can be discreet." And it all went to shit after that.
It did. Well, now, like Michael White, I put his post up here. He said, any relationship where you lose control is destructive. I think, do you mean is destructive? You can really want someone, but there has to be commitment. Okay. I think there's truism in there. I don't think any relationship where and it all depends on what you mean by losing control. Personal control, or are you talking controlling the other person? If you lose personal control, yeah, you can, when you're trying to control another person, yeah, certainly that can be very destructive. But I think also that you can truly want somebody or lust after somebody, but there has to be commitment. I think commitment grows after that. Commitment doesn't come just because you desire somebody.
No.
Commitment may come because you desire somebody. You may go, wow, I want that person. Wow, that person turns my head. It's like I said, by way of example, like I'll just take being in college, for instance. When I'd walk along the campus with my buddies and some gorgeous woman would walk by, and we'd all kind of go, we wouldn't gawk because we were gentlemen, but you were like, what did Seinfeld say? Seinfeld said, you get a sense and you move on. She'd walk by, and then all the guys would all look at each other and go, holy crap, she was gorgeous. And then we'd start laying bets who was going to be the first of us to want to try to ask her out or find out more about her. Now, when we were doing that and we wanted to go, I want to ask that woman out because she drew my attention physically. Not because we knew anything about her personality or knew if she could type or knew, if she knew how to iron a shirt. There was none of these things meant any difference. We were drawn to the physical attraction. Just like in every aspect of nature, there is physical attraction, whether it be lustful and bountiful or whether it be, boy, he's got colorful plumage, he will make good babies. When we looked at that gorgeous woman walking by, I want to go out with her. Why? We didn't ask ourselves, well, why would you like to go out? Let's psychoanalyze you. Mr. Scotty, why don't you put your head down on this leather pillow, which I just happen to have carried in my backpack. Let's put it down here on the marble bench on campus. Lay your head down on this leather pillow and tell us, please, what is it that draws you to this attractive woman that just walked by? Why would you want to date her? We didn't ask ourselves those questions. We were drawn by the physical attraction, and the physical attraction, the lust, made us want to ask that person out. Now, commitment can eventually come if that's where that's meant to go, but lust wrongfully placed would be wrong, obviously. Lust would have to be mutual for it to be beneficial at all. I don't think lust leads to destruction. I think lust leads to opportunities to decide whether you're going to be destructive or you're going to be constructive.
Well, that's a good point, because is lust a healthy emotion? And the answer is yes, it is. But sometimes it can be an unhealthy one too, because it's how you express that feeling, how you express that emotion, that shows whether it's healthy or unhealthy. For instance, how is healthy, as in the fact that are there any negative things that go along with it? So say you're interested in someone and you feel this lust towards them, but the other person's not wanting that, as in the fact you met someone, you started dating, you might be so into them so much, but they're like, hang on a minute, slow down. You know,
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
this is too
I've had
much.
that happen. I mean, I get embarrassed. It's rejection to me.
Of
So
course you do. I must just put my glasses on here and just
please
join
do.
in. Well,
Yeah,
because
I'm
I
trying
need to.
that.
I'm trying to read Matthew's
Yes.
comment where it says, "You guys would have seen that movie a lot more than me, since you guys have been around a lot longer than I did." Matthew is a classic. Like Casablanca is a classic. Like Gone with the Wind.
Casablanca. Yeah, it's a
At
classic
the
movie.
end
Yeah.
of the day, like, Scarlett O'Hara, she fancied the pants out of Rhett Butler.
Yeah.
There was a lot of lust in that relationship. You got to watch it and brace yourself, Matthew. Brace yourself, because there were men that watched that movie and they were terrified to ever be naughty ever again,
Yes.
because they knew what was waiting for
There was
them.
another movie. What was the one with Sharon Stone and Michael? Was it Michael Douglas and Sharon Stone?
Basic Instinct.
Basic Instinct. Do you
Yeah.
know what happened after them? I went to that movie with my wife, who I was married to at the time, not Rainey, my ex-wife. That movie came out in what, 90, 91? And I was the creative director of an internal ad agency for a huge photo finishing company, the largest only next to Kodak, that lets you know how big we were and the times of the year that it was. We were still doing photos. But I was the creative director. But we watched that movie. We were done about midnight.
Mhm.
And on the way home, we had to stop and pick up something that I had left on the desk in my office. She came in with me. We did the movie thing. We cleared the desk, and we all went on the floor, and we fucked like rabbits on the desk in my office. And I had to come in the next morning. We kind of picked up a little bit, but nobody said anything. Nobody noticed, I don't think.
I mean,
that's what that movie did for us.
It is, and
that was human lust with my wife.
9.5 weeks was my movie. 9.5 weeks was I was 16.
And you can leave your hat on.
I was 16 when I first saw that film, and I went with my boyfriend at the time, who was slightly older than me, and I was like, I think I made a mistake. This isn't a chick flick after all. But do you know what? That movie sparked something in me. It sparked something that was dormant, even at that young age, and it's like it's become. It was like my Bible for years, and I remember years ago going to see Wild Orchid with Mickey Rourke and I think it's Cassie Otis or something. And my boyfriend at the time said to me, "Let's go and see The Late Show on a Sunday." And I said, "Yeah." And, I was just turned 19, 20, had to ask Mom for permission. Mom, is it all right if I stay the night, at Jason's house? Because, and she's like, okay, as long as I know where you are. So we went to the cinema. It was in Streatham, which is, was known to have the late night cinema. And we were in the back seat as we were a couple, a young one that we were. And there was all these gentlemen coming in with their coats on. Lots of gentlemen with their coats on. And I'm thinking, I feel a bit out of it here. There's only like 2 or 3 women in here. Anyway, let's just say that movie was pretty hot, right?
It was.
It was pretty hot. And there was a lot of men with their hands in their pockets throughout the whole of that movie. There was a lot of men with their hands in their pockets. And I don't think it was
Wendy, what does that mean? Were they reaching for change?
And I remember sitting there going, I'm not getting out of the seat first, right? And they were literally, so we were at the back and they were sort of all around us. But I'm telling you, the lustful feelings that movie brought out in myself and him. And 9.5 weeks, we used to watch that all the time. And
he had a great wardrobe, by the way.
When Mickey Rourke does Kim Basinger in the alleyway with the water falling on them, and then there's the whole where he rips her clothes and throws her on the table. I can honestly say that relationship and I, we tried a lot of that out, and I have to say it was wonderful. It was mutual. It was experimental. It made me feel alive, and it's like it put the what I'm saying
My
is,
wife and I tried the strawberries and stuff after that movie. And it was just like, I just remember doing that. It was like, hey, this isn't sexual. This is messy. I don't like being
you obviously
messy.
weren't doing it right with the honey down the legs, honey. You obviously weren't doing
That's it. That's it.
properly. And I mean, I have to say that's still one of the most sexiest movies.
It is a very sexy movie.
50 Shades of Grey is pants and rubbish compared to.
I'd like to see Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger come together for a reunion.
Oh, I enjoyed the movie.
9.5 weeks later, 9.5 decades later.
I enjoyed the movie, and you know, it's still one of my favorite. You know, I remember when Mark and I were talking on Strangely Us about what films had an effect on us in our life, and I said 9.5 weeks because it made me discover that dominant side to me, but it also brought out. Thanks, Val. It also brought out the fact that lust. I didn't know what it was. My mother had never taught me about it. My parents had never talked to her about it. I didn't know what lust was. You know, back in 86, 7, 8, and 9, it wasn't really talked about in the magazines, you know, as it was. So I kind of learned from the movies and never looked back since.
There's an interesting thing here. I put it up earlier. Michael White said in response, he said, "Don't get me wrong. I was once in a lustful relationship and she used it against me. After that, I promised myself I'd never let go again. Full stop on there. There are things that happen to us personally, obviously, that will change the way we do things. I was the opposite of that, Michael. I used to be very giving. It seemed, not that I turned to the opposite of that. I'm sorry. Let me restate that. I used to be a very giving person when it came to that. I used to be very open, very vulnerable when it came to sexual stuff. As a matter of fact, at early on in my earlier days, I didn't do that at all because I thought it was taking advantage of a woman. But that was used against me, being the opposite of what you're talking about here. You said if you get more from a woman if you keep her guessing. You said, and I would say I don't like that. Again, nothing personal against you, Michael, but I don't like that philosophy. I don't want to keep a woman guessing. I don't like being played with and manipulated.
Yeah.
Those are things that I learned very early on in life. There's things.
Does he mean like play hard to get? So
if you're talking about playing hard to get, yeah, I see that, and I'm a cards on the table kind of guy. The only time I don't put my cards on the table is if I'm afraid it's going to cause me pain or afraid it's going to cause me rejection. I'm not going to put this card on the table because I don't want to be turned down. But I don't play games with it. It's like the illustration. I use the example of one of my old shop teachers from high school. And I've told this story once before. I don't know if it was here or if it was on my own show, but he said, I went out with my wife. The first, and he's from out east. He's from the Boston area. So he kind of talked like that, you know, a little bit. But he also had a little bit of a speech impediment. So he kind of ended up talking like this an awful lot. So listen to him talk, he would say, you'd almost hear it in his voice. So yes, I took my wife out. We weren't married. It was our first date. And I said to her, looking across the table before the food even arrived, he says, so I want to know, do you want to marry me or what? He says, marry me, have kids with me, spend your life with me, because if you don't, I don't want to waste all my time and money on you. And we all laughed, of course. And but he said that's what he did. He put it, and guess what? She married him. That was like, oh my God, that had to be at least 60 years ago. I think they've got to be in their late 70s or 80s now. And by the way, his last name was Hazard. So I thought that was very interesting. A shop teacher with the name of Hazard who had that attitude. But they got married. They had 5 sons, look exactly like him. and they're all pretty cool guys, and their life together has apparently been very happy.
Mind you, sometimes when someone
So,
annoys the hell out of you,
yeah,
it can be it can make you lust after them because you're like, I am so angry with this person. I am so annoyed with them, but my God, I want them. And it builds the fire in your belly, right? And it makes you lusty. I love that word.
yes,
Lusty. We don't use that word enough. And I just want to give
lusty,
a couple of samples of lusty. If you're with someone and you use comments
please.
like, you're so hot, I can't wait to get my hands on you, or
Ah,
I just can't wait to see you, or, how's it go? I mean, I'm going to use a very English term.
please.
Forgive me. It's like, fuck me. Look at that. You would just bring it on.
I'm sorry.
Just
What was that? What's the first part?
You heard it. You heard it.
I missed that first part. What was that?
I think you heard the words. I'm not doing it again. But also your facial expressions, like
Yes.
use your eyes and your eyebrows and your mouth, how you talk to someone, how you get your words out. Because if you're gonna, let someone know that you find them,
Yes.
you're lustful after them, you're lusting after them. So using eye contact is really, really important, and so is your facial expressions. You can even write to them and an email or text and say, "This is what you do to me."
Yeah.
And as
Yeah.
long as obviously you need to be careful with that one.
Yeah.
If you've never done it before and they go, "What the hell is this?" And maybe some photographs. This is what I'm going to rephrase that before I even said it. I'm going to say,
What?
if you're going to send a photograph, it's like, I'm not even going to go there. Actually,
My email address is Scotty at.
I'm not even going there. It's like, but
Right.
for instance, it is true, and Val, yes, depending on how they annoy you. I mean, I happen to have had the situation or have the situation where someone they drive you crazy, but you still can't get enough of them.
Yeah.
You still want them.
Sure.
And it's lustful. And I think, but you need to see that. I think it's really sexy when I see how someone lusts after me in a gentlemanly manner. I don't want to see the dick pics.
Right.
I'm just saying out there. I don't want to see the dick pics.
Right.
But I think it's quite nice to be told to someone, you turn me on, you're hot, I fancy you, I can't get enough of you. God, you look really great in that. Do you know what I mean, Scotty? And I'm
Yes,
sure it's
I
the same
do.
for a guy, right?
I do. I know exactly what you mean. And I think I don't know why guys think sending pictures of their genitalia to a woman is going to turn her on. Now
Listen,
you might find that you might run across the rare. I mean, what do they see? Even a broken clock is right twice a day. You might run across the right woman, and maybe in that ratio, 2 out of 24.
yeah.
That would turn on, and that would have a good effect on. But guys, I'm going to tell you something you may already know. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir with this audience, but don't send dick pics to a woman, please, unless she begs you for them. Maybe that's playing the game. Okay, you beg me enough, maybe I will, but there has to be a reason. Because be careful. You don't know if it's going to go in a collection that she's posting somewhere to go look at all these, whatever.
As I did say, us girls do tend to share them at times. Not all pictures, but we can.
Yes.
And let's be honest, we don't even know if, how can I put this nicely? We don't even know if that is your appendage anyway.
That's right.
You could have a fake one. It could be a fake picture. Everything could be. I would rather see it in the flesh at the moment of,
unveiling.
Exactly.
The unveiling. Yes.
I'd rather have that mystery, because to me, before you get in my bed, you've got to get in my head, and I want that
there. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. But aren't there also times where even women, men and women both, maybe this is the age thing that comes in.
Yes.
because men and women can lust for each other. But isn't that because there is a, I hate to use this term because it's misused a lot, but the biological clock factor? Isn't there a biological factor that ticks away in all of us that says, this is the age to get jiggy, because this is the age, the best age for which you can procreate and have children? That's just nature. Now, after a certain age, you could still have that. But is a woman going to feel that same thing if, say, her body's going through a change that says, we're going to start shutting down these things that you don't need to do anymore because you're too old to do them? Does that affect then jigginess? Does that affect lustfulness?
Yeah.
Does that affect the desire to be lustful? Maybe that's the uglier but natural side of it. There are women that just it's like, and I don't use ugly in a pejorative way there. I mean it by saying that's the darker side, or the not so happy side of lust, is that lust can go away. Lust is temporal. But when the lust goes away, then you have to look at the other things. Does this person still really love me, male or female? Mm-hmm. Do they love me? Do they want to be with me? Do they want to be around me? Do they ask for it regularly? Yeah. But is there going to be a point where they go with it? Is there? These are the things you have to ask in a loving relationship, a loving longer-term relationship. That just realize going in, if you go in lustful, all thrusters burning and banging away for years, that is going to diminish.
It will.
It doesn't stay there. Now, don't get me wrong, I've gotten into the good habit of also saying nothing is the same all the time. I can't just make a blanket statement and say it's that way for everybody. There might be some people who've been together for 52 years together, and they still love fucking on the counter in the kitchen, and the table and the bathroom and wherever.
Go wrong, honestly.
Yeah. And they've just learned not to do it on the white sand beach without towels.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, it's everybody's different, but there are general categories that you're not always going to want the same thing as you get older. And hopefully that lust that started and led you into something that became love and commitment and wanting to, is the thing that takes over when the lust diminishes.
But what happens can lust come back? Because what happens if lust dies? Can it come back? Yes, of course it can.
Yeah,
absolutely. It can come back. But is it a different form of lust than when you first got together? Yeah.
I see what you're saying, and I think it does. I think that there are things that it's this whole. There was a lost concept of lust. It was this whole sexual desire and lust not being the same thing. We talked about that a little bit, but there's also that part of lust that is a thing that came. I'm sorry for the what would you call it? The what's the word I'm looking for? The using that term that way. Okay. There, if I talk my way out of that hole, I just
nobody noticed.
So, but learning to lust is an idea. Can you learn to lust again? Can it come back again? And there's a lot of women, frankly, more than men, that are troubled by low sexual desire.
Yes,
I've known more women. I haven't known a lot of men that say, I just don't. I just don't like it anymore. I like to have, sex with a good, gorgeous woman. I don't know anymore. There's not a lot of guys that do that. I'm sorry. So there's, but this whole idea of this sexual desire, there's things that can derail it. There's things that can, what's the idea here that I'm looking for? There are, women that are troubled by their low sexual desire.
Yeah.
Okay, help me as I stammer through this. I'm trying to get my thoughts straight on this.
You mean if they've got like a low sex drive?
A low sex drive comes. I'm trying to say it politely. There's too much of the world that's around them that can derail their sensuality. And it's yet it's a thing that can be very fixable when it's turned off. There are women that turn that thing off. I just don't have libido anymore. I don't have a sexual desire anymore. I don't lust after my husband anymore. Don't want him to go anywhere. He's still useful. You know. Well, what was it?
Like that too. Like men are like that. They can lose their sexual desire as well.
Pun. That was it, Rudy. Thank you.
Women, we can take it very personal if it's not working, you know. Like,
there's a lot of men out there that will lose sexual interest in their wife, not in general, but in their wife because, oh, she's not as svelte as she was before I gave her 4 children. Oh, my wife's put on weight. My wife's getting old, or she doesn't wake up with a rose in her teeth anymore. Dude, and the dude is usually not a prize for womanhood either. You know, he ages too. But that's when men have these affairs because they lose interest in their wives. I want my wife to be there. I don't want to lose her. She's a great mom, great kids. I love her. Yeah. But I want sex with that person over there. Guys compartmentalize and they do that. And sometimes it even happens to women. But there's all kinds of things that there's been a push to find a drug for women that is like the drug for men. Men have Viagra. You know, men have ED. Why? Usually because they're just growing older and things don't work quite as well as they used to. Not everybody.
But it can also be caused by low testosterone levels. Which
low testosterone? Because those things fade when you get older if you don't do things to make them work and keep them up.
And it can also be psychological.
Figuratively speaking.
Could be said or done to them. And I think that as a woman, I've been in that situation where it's just not happening. And you just feel like, I thought I was good at this. I thought I could make anything work. And it just doesn't. And it's very personal that you still keep that attraction between you by saying, look, this isn't about us or you. It's about how I'm going in my body right now. I still fancy the hell out of you. And I still want to, you know, I still want to. And as you said, I can't believe these words are coming up. We talked about this before. Lust can still be shown in other ways and not just sexual intercourse, right?
It can.
You can show someone you're lustful for them in many other ways, and it doesn't always involve that. And I think a lot of people forget that lust is in the mind and not as well as in your genitals.
Hey, keep going for a minute. I've got to step away for a minute. I'll be right back, okay? You keep going. You go, girl.
I'll do my best.
I'll be right back.
So yes, lust is very much important to keep it in your mind. You might not be able to get the body to work physically, but if you can still have that attraction mentally for someone, if you still want to get, you look at them and you find them sexually attractive and you still want to go there, make sure you tell them. Make sure that you tell them what you want. Tell them, look, you know, because women and men, we can take things personally in that department. Yes, Val, absolutely. We have to do things to spice up the relationship. Done that before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Lust is a very natural, common biological reaction that has many benefits. If you act on it with respect, lust can be fun and it can deepen a connection, deepen a relationship, and even help repair. I mean, I know someone, they've been married many, many years and their relationship has had issues along the way. There have been issues, more than one. And there have been times where the whole sexual relationship has just disappeared, just completely gone. And there's like, I don't fancy him anymore. I just, the rowing, the nagging, the not making an effort, because couples do get, what's the word I want to use? Settled. They get very complacent and they don't try. They put weight on. They don't make an effort. They don't do dating. They don't do anything like that. Basically they just give up. And so what happens is someone goes, well, you don't try with me anymore. You used to woo me. You used to chat me up. We used to go on dates. We used to have, date nights and stuff like that. You've got to do things to spice things up. And that's why so many relationships that have been together for such a long time survive, because that spark is still there and both of them are still working at it. Spirit, what do you mean? Is anyone getting commercials? I have. Are you getting a commercial break through this? Because I'm not seeing that. Val, absolutely. Surprises are really, really important. Underwear. I'm not saying this, but, underwear, sometimes it can help. Smelling good food, good wine, going out for a nice meal, going away for the weekend. But you know what? It's all very well taking someone away for a weekend, giving them a nice dinner, buying nice presents, wearing the underwear. But if you're not coming up with the lustful, this is what you make me feel like, you look, if that's not coming up, it doesn't matter what you do. I was just saying, Scotty, even if you go away with a weekend for someone in the nicest hotel, or you go on holiday with them for the great week, if you don't fancy each other, if it's not in the head, if you're both not working, if you're both not visualizing and vocalizing it, it's not going to happen.
Right. So, I just had to run upstairs for something. And I'm walking down the hallway. And as I turn the corner and go into the hallway, there's my wife, Rainey, who everybody here knows, standing there. Well, she had on a pair of jeans. That was it. And I said, well, hello. She said, you still doing radio? And I said, yeah. And she's getting ready. She's got to take the little one somewhere. She was getting dressed. And I'm like, the immediate thing I thought of was this show was lust kicks in, and I don't even have to think about it. All you have to do is see nudity. Absolutely. Guys, we look at things. We look at my wife's gorgeous. So I look at my wife and I go, oh, lustful. And I go, I don't have time. I got to go back down and do radio. So, but that by way of example, just the very fact that I see the naked woman of my wife, it triggers the lust factor. I'm not too old for that. That still happens. That's the way men operate. Maybe that's the way a lot of us operate. If you turn the corner in your hallway, Wendy, for a split second, and there was a man with a gorgeous body standing there, naked, would you go, oh, what are you doing in my house, you?
Well, first of all, I'd wonder how.
Oh, stop that right now!
But if Alexander Skarsgård just happens to be going past my house and walks straight in, I'd more than happy, because
there you go.
He's a fine-looking man.
Yes.
But I also think as well, when you're with a partner and you've been with them for a while, and say you're going out for the night, and they put a nice suit on, or they smell really, really good, right? Just the smell of them can make you feel like, oh God, I want them. I just want them. The smell of them can be, I can just see what JP's writing down there.
I got it here. We'll hit that in a second.
What was it, Jeff Foxworthy?
He said Jeff Foxworthy said she was vacuuming in her good robe when she bent over to get under the coffee table. I thought, hell, I can watch Bonanza anytime.
To be Jason. Yeah. Bada boom.
And pretty much. You vacuum away, honey.
Apart from, obviously there is lust for power. There is lust for food. There is lots of different versions of lust, and some people could say that, people in power, they will do anything to get it. They will. And it's the same if you fancy someone. I don't believe a wedding ring ever stops anybody. And so I know people that are married.
In what way? How do you mean? Never stops.
I know people that are married and they've still been tempted away by somebody
Oh,
else.
sure.
And
They can be happily married and be tempted
yeah,
away.
and it's lustful. Hi
Sure.
Keith, how you doing?
Hey, Keith.
It's like, and what actually tempted you? Well, there was just something there, and it doesn't have to be sex. It doesn't have to be the fact that she looked gorgeous or he looked gorgeous. It can be the fact that, there's something just building between them. I think sometimes lust can be very sneaky, and sometimes it can sneak up on you as well. And before you know it, you're like, oh God, yeah, I do want them. And I didn't know I wanted them that badly. Just saying. Just saying.
Just saying. Well, on that just saying, I don't know if we've drawn any conclusions here. We've more talked about it. We're nearing really the end of this show.
Fail.
And sorry to say, what's that?
She says, gotta say, a good coconut cream pie does it for me.
Nice.
Is that using it on them or just eating it yourself?
I got to say, I like a good key lime, a real key lime pie.
I have to say, whipped cream with any pie is really good.
I'm not a big whipped cream fan, I got to tell you.
I think whipped cream has its places, Scotty.
I think it has it. Yeah.
I think whipped cream has its places quite a lot.
She bites her finger.
What would I know? What would I know?
What would... I don't know.
Innocent. We're young whippersnappers. Just having the whole pie to myself. That's what.
Yeah, I like pie. Don't get me wrong. I don't always like whipped cream, but I like pie.
You can't beat a bit of pie.
Pie's good.
Do you remember the American Pie film?
Yes.
And that scene when he walks in the kitchen with the pie.
With the pie, yep. I do remember that, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So
that was a vision. So hopefully we've definitely covered the relationship, sexual lust, don't you think?
We covered it. What? We covered the relationship sexually. You saying?
I said I think we've covered the lust in a relationship.
Oh, the lust. Yes. I think we have. We all know what it is. We all understand it. Have we delved the depths? I drooled and spit on that. I don't know why, but I'm enunciating well.
Give me three famous women that you have lusted over.
Oh, Jesus. Not Jesus. Not a woman.
Jesus.
3 famous women I've lusted over. Oh, see, now you brought up almost a new topic, but is just because they're famous and they look good and you go, whoa, doesn't mean I'm really lusting after that person. I think lust involves a more personal concupiscence. You have to be...
Come on, which woman have you fancied and wanted to have the hots for and wanted to get hold of?
Well, it's celebrities who I would never, ever possibly have the opportunity to even really lust over because there's no personal connection. Angelina Jolie.
Yeah.
Let's see, who else was it? There was a very famous blonde. Well, if you're asking for my top 3, that's going to be tough because there were a whole lot of them. But in that category of celebrity, wow, I'd love to see her naked or do her, and there's no possible chance of that ever happening because of her celebrity status. There's a whole lot of those. But Angelina Jolie was at the top. There was what's her name? She's Australian, I believe. She was in Star Trek, one of the movies, Back to Darkness or Into Darkness, as the blonde, the young Dr. Marcus, Kirk's blonde girlfriend that we found out in the series that he had a son with. That woman, I can't think of her name. Her. And there was one other blonde one. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what her name was, who that was. Um, I got so off on trying to describe the one character. Um, oh, good grief! Uh, can't think of her name now. It'll come to me. But there was a third.
See, for me, it's like, I mean, obviously I've mentioned Alexander Skarsgård because when I saw him
Right.
in True Blood with most of his clothes off at the time, I actually thought to myself, good God, I've never fancied blonde men before, but I could absolutely go for Alexander Skarsgård. And the other one I thought was always rather quite fanciful.
Simon Evans, by the way, has his 3 right there.
What a lovely compliment.
There you go.
Was Antonio Banderas in
Antonio
Zorro.
Banderas. Yeah. Well, that brings up who played Mrs. Zorro.
That was Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Welsh, Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Yeah.
Oh my God! The first time I ever saw her on screen, I was like absolutely smitten. She wasn't the one I was trying to think of before, but now that you mentioned Antonio, she came to mind. She's the one.
Antonio's voice. I mean, I can't even watch Shrek without listening to his voice. Geez, that man is beautiful, and he actually doesn't live too far from me. Believe it or not, he actually lives in Guildford in Surrey.
He lives in England.
Yes, he does now. I'm going to have to drive over there, but
yeah, just drive over and say hello.
He's so hot. I look at him and I'm just like, oh my God, right? And the other one that when I was young, obviously, that I used to think was so hot was Patrick Swayze. Like, when he was in Dirty Dancing, when he was in
Patrick Swayze was the heartthrob.
He was so goddamn hot. Like Gerald Butler, yes,
Alice
I
Eve.
agree. I absolutely agree.
Oh, Alice Eve being the name of the blonde woman that was in Star Trek. The other one I was thinking of was Eva Green. You know who Eva Green was or is?
She's in James Bond. She was the. But I also have to say that Russell Crowe wearing his Maximus. Maximus.
Are you not entertained?
Gladiator. I've had a lot of those. That's been paused and stopped.
There you go.
Just saying.
Is this an admirer of yours? He's the cooler. Does that have some significance we don't know about?
Well, in Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze, Dalton, the cooler, wasn't he?
Oh, that was a movie line for. See, I wasn't that into Patrick Swayze, so I couldn't remember the lines.
But now we don't call them callers over here. We call them bouncers.
JP. For the most part, I've never really had the hots for celebrities. I always basically had the hots only for whoever I was dating at the time. I don't know. Celebrities don't really do anything for me. See now, listen. This is what I was getting at. I don't really lust after celebrities.
Yeah,
you can find them attractive, but I never had an unhealthy or unwholesome or maybe an unwholesome thought every now and then. But I never really had the hots for a celebrity. I thought there were hot celebrities, though. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'm more with JP on that one because celebs, he says, are basically a bunch of bullshit. Well, and celebs, you can probably find some good people in the mix, but they're celebrities. That's their job. Their job is to make women celebrities or to make guys kind of lust after them. And depending on the kind of projects.
I know people using Jason as he's probably going to blush on this. I've had chats with the ladies when we've all talked about, Jason being a bit of a babe and, how he's a bit of a hot totty. And
there you go, Jason.
He's going to go, oh,
how you doing? She's saying.
And he's going to go red. But it's true. Like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
'Tis.
Lust. So is lust.
Yeah, lust. There's room for it. I hate to do this. We haven't taken any callers.
No.
But I pretty much got to call the show on this end. You all can get a hold of Wendy personally and talk with her if you'd like more about this. Hi, Wendy. I was listening to the show and I want to talk to you about lust.
And I will be back on next Tuesday with the lovely Scotty, and I will be here
Yes.
on Sunday with Wicked Women at 10 o'clock.
Wicked Women.
Well, I'm sure that Val and I may think about following on from this with another hot topic.
Oh.
But of course, Scotty, you and I will be back next Tuesday with another sister.
Yes. Another fascinating romp.
We will. And it's always good because we have that dynamic between us.
All my romps with Wendy are fascinating.
Exactly.
I will say.
And it makes you come back for more.
It certainly does. Folks, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to us. Thanks for putting up with us sometimes. More with me. Wendy, you can put up with me. You got to put up with me. Yeah. So we appreciate you being here, giving us your time. And we've had a fun time doing the show. And we'll have fun time doing more shows in the future. So I want to thank you all for being here. And I'm going to say what I always say: live long and prosper. Wendy, good night.
Good night.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.